If you'll bow your head in prayer with me. Father, thank you for this chance that we get to come together, that we get to work for the betterment of the community. And as we sit here tonight, there are many things that we can claim blessings in this community, but there are also people who are hurting in this community. We pray for the Luke family who lost a child this week, and we pray for their family. We pray for the students at Siegel, that they'll be comforted, that, Lord, you'll be with them. Lord, across the country, we lift up our police officers. We lift up their families, the ones who have recently been taken, and we just pray for the entire country and community that there would be a peace and that there's a better way to handle things besides violence.
Amen.
And I lift up this community and thank you for what you're doing here for the people in this community. You know, Father, we agree and disagree, but I think at the same time we all look at our community as being a blessed community, and we thank you for the city of Murfreesboro. Thank you for each person sitting up here at this desk tonight for what they mean and what they stand for. And we pray that your will be done here tonight. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to the September 3rd, 2015 Murfreesboro City Council meeting. We have a couple of ceremonial items that we want to handle first. We have a Stars Award presentation, and we also have a proclamation that we're going to give tonight. Mr. Godwin.
Thank you, Mayor, and members of Murfreesboro City Council. I have the privilege and honor once again this evening to bring to you our next group of Stars Award recipients. We had a very busy month in terms of nominations this month. It was a very difficult choice, but on behalf of the 1,400 City of Murfreesboro employees and our 7-member nomination committee, I want to read a story that was sent in from Captain Jamie Bigelow out of Ladder Company Number 1 that will help to set the stage for our award winners this evening. I'd like to thank you for your assistance during the aftermath of the severe storms which blew through downtown Murfreesboro Thursday night. My crew and I were dispatched to the Imperial Inn located at 610 Northwest Broad Street due to reports of the roof being torn away from the building. During my initial scene assessment, I quickly determined the building not to be inhabitable, meaning the residents would need to be sheltered elsewhere. The Imperial Inn is known to provide housing for permanent residents rather than daily occupants. The majority of these residents do not have transportation, and most are without the means of finding living arrangements. I asked our dispatcher to relay to you a request of receiving 2 City Rover buses to transport up to 40 residents to another location. I quickly received a call back from one of your staff members stating you were aware of my need and we were working on getting 2 drivers to come in. Shortly after a conversation, I received another call advising me the 2 buses were en route. Both buses arrived shortly and were welcomed by the displaced residents who were wet, hot, and, of course, worried. Your drivers, Ann and Michelle, were not only happy to help, but were more accommodating to everyone's needs. Understandably, anxiety began to grow with a few of the residents as they sat on the bus waiting on the Red Cross to finalize the opening of a shelter location. While we ensured a location would be found and opened, both Ann and Michelle provided great assistance in easing the stress of the residents and helped them to remain calm. This seamless continuity of teamwork between city departments exemplifies the creating a better quality of life we as city employees provide daily for our citizens. Please provide both Ann and Michelle a personal thanks from me for the great amount of help they provided. Sincerely, Captain Jamie Bigelow. I would also like now to call Nellie Patton to the podium to further discuss and introduce the award recipients this evening. Nellie?
Good evening, Council. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Team Rover as the representatives of the Stars of Excellence Award. On June 23, 2015, late in the evening, a thunderstorm decimated a local hotel, leaving the patrons stranded in the wind and rain. Until the Red Cross could formally organize these citizens, a police captain called Rover for help in providing shelter and transportation for these citizens. Rover driver supervisor Lisa McCluskey mobilized 2 full-time drivers, Ann Cool and Michelle Casper, as well as administrative assistant Beth Ann Clayton Boyd, to meet at the Rover Operations Office on Florence Road and prepare 2 buses for use in helping the police and the Red Cross in assisting these displaced citizens. The buses were used as shelters until housing at the New Visions Church could be secured. This supervisor and drivers worked tirelessly from about 9:45 p.m. to about 12:30 a.m., assisting the police in housing and relocating these citizens with adequate shelter for the night. Their example of selflessness, cooperation, and community service exemplifies the excellence with which they provide service to the city on a daily basis as well as in emergency situations. So I present to you Lisa McCluskey, Rover driver supervisor, Michelle Casper, full-time driver, Ann Cool, full-time driver, and administrative assistant Beth Ann Clayton Boyd.
Lisa, do you have anyone you want to introduce? Do you have any family here with you?
I have my husband Brent, my son Adam, and his wife Sharon, and my granddaughters Madison and Lexi Page.
All right. Thank you.
No, Mom, I had bronchitis and my son was falling.
Thank you for what you do. Thank you so much. All right. I also want to share something, and first of all, to all the family members, I know you don't get to come to the council chambers very much, and you look at our drivers for Rover, and many times you're the faces that a lot of our residents see every single day, and you're helping them get to places that help our city. And so we just want to say thank you for what you do, and thank you for how you do it, and thank you families for sharing them with us. I want to tell a quick story. Probably like Councilmember LaLance, we're on the soccer fields quite a bit, and a month or so ago, they've been doing a lot of work out at the soccer fields, and these ladies and gentlemen have all been working long hours. But right after the shootings that happened in Chattanooga, around the community, our flags were flying at half-mast, and so I was back on the back fields where there's no lights. There's a light on the flag. Mr. Newman, there's a light on the flag back there. And so I'm out talking to some parents, and the flag is not at half-mast. So there's a part-time worker there, Colin. I didn't get his last name, and I just said, "Hey, Colin, can we get that flag lowered to half-mast?" And he said, I'm over trying to figure out how to do it, and there's a lock. And so he said, "I don't know how, but we'll figure it out." And so I said, "Well, don't worry about it. We'll get it done tomorrow." Well, so 10 minutes later, Shane Whitworth, who was out there working, comes zooming in on his gator, never really says a word, walks over, lowers the flag, sees me and says, "Sorry, we didn't get that." But he dropped everything he was doing to come lower that flag. And so that's the employees that we have working at this city.
Yep.
Mr. Taylor Loyal, how about coming up? We have a proclamation. Many of y'all know Taylor. Taylor was the editor-in-chief with the DNJ for many years, and Taylor and I have gotten to be friends, and Taylor now is with Second Harvest Food Bank. And you'll see they were in front of us at our budget hearings, but what they're doing in our community and how many pounds of food do you serve in the Murfreesboro, Rutherford County area?
In Rutherford County, about 2 million pounds of food.
2 million pounds of food. So this week is Hunger Action Month, and we want to be able to help support your organization any way we can, so we have a proclamation. Whereas hunger and poverty are issues of grave concern in the United States, the state of Tennessee, and the city of Murfreesboro, and whereas the city of Murfreesboro is committed to taking steps to raise awareness about the need to solve hunger in every part of Murfreesboro and to provide additional resources that citizens of Murfreesboro need. And whereas the city of Murfreesboro is committed to working with Second Harvest Food Bank of Middle Tennessee and 21 partner agencies in Rutherford County to distribute nearly 2 million pounds of food to hungry children, seniors, and families. And whereas Tennessee is 14th in the nation for childhood hunger, according to Feeding America's MAP, the Meal Gap Report. 1 in 6 Tennesseans and 1 in 4 children in Tennessee experience hunger. And whereas Second Harvest Food Bank of Middle Tennessee works with 450 partner agencies in 46 counties to distribute more than 28 million pounds of food to hungry children, seniors, and families. And whereas food banks across the country, including Second Harvest Food Bank of Middle Tennessee, will host events and activities throughout the month of September to bring awareness and attention to the issue of hunger and encourage the involvement of our community to help solve hunger. Now, therefore, I, Shane McFarland, Mayor of the City of Murfreesboro, Tennessee, on behalf of the entire City Council, do hereby recognize September as Hunger Action Month. And as thanks to the Second Harvest Food Bank of Middle Tennessee for their service to our community, we urge all citizens to join in this recognition. Taylor, thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you, sir.
You want to say anything?
Sure. Well, no, I just want to thank Mayor McFarland and this council for your leadership on this issue. You all probably know Hunger Action Month. It's a nationwide event. We have about 202 food banks across the country that are all under the Feeding America umbrella. We're all observing Hunger Action Month this month to just try to raise awareness about hunger in our community. So appreciate you all being a part of this. Thank you.
Taylor.
Thank you, Taylor.
Taylor, how can citizens help if they want to help during this month? What's the best way?
The best way to food, funds, and friends. So we need all of them. So if we work with a lot of grocery stores in the area to collect food, which we then distribute throughout the community. We always need funds. For us, 96 cents of every dollar donated goes directly to fighting hunger in our community, and every dollar donated equals 4 meals. And then we need friends. We need people to volunteer to come out to our partner agencies when we have mobile pantries and things like that to get involved and help us distribute food.
Awesome, thanks.
Who are some of the people around Murfreesboro that are giving food that you pick up?
Walmart, Publix, Target, I mean all the major grocery stores we work with, Food Lion. And then our partner agencies, as Mayor McFarland said, we have 21 partner agencies. You probably know them: Greenhouse Ministries, Midland Baptist Church, a lot of agencies that we work with to distribute that food. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I feel like we can just adjourn the meeting right now. It's a good point to do that. What do y'all think? No? All right, cool stuff happening in Murfreesboro. You have the consent agenda in front of you. Have several items for your consideration.
Move for approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, Councilman Young with a motion. Councilman Washington with a second. Ms. Wright, will call the roll.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Young.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. You have the minutes of the August 27th, 2015 regular meeting in front of you.
Move for approval.
Second. Councilman LaLance and Councilman Smotherman. Ms. Wright, if you'll call the roll. I'm sorry, Councilman Shacklet. My fault.
It's okay.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Young.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. We'll consider for second reading passage of Ordinance 15047, amending Chapter 32, Traffic Section 32730 regarding the operation of vehicles on approach of authorized emergency vehicles, the Move Over Law.
Move for passage on second read.
Second.
Councilman Washington, Councilman Lance, if you'll call the roll.
Mr. LaLance?
Aye.
Mr. Shackley?
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman?
Aye.
Mr. Washington?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Young?
Aye.
Mayor McFarland?
Aye. We'll consider for first reading a letter from the City Recorder and the Finance Director regarding Ordinance 15048.
Tonight, what we have before you is an opportunity for us to continue working with our new ERP software to make it stronger and work well with our new practices that we're developing, going from the COBOL system to a system that is open, where more people have opportunity to see the software, work with the software, and for management to use it as a tool. The city budget is made up of funds, and there are several funds within that entire budget. And within the general fund, there are departments. So, for example, the police department, golf, planning, they're individual departments. We set up the new software at the city manager's office request to then even button down those departments to three major cost categories. One is salaries and benefits, one is operating, and one is fixed assets. In the old software, if a department had something unexpected happen where they needed to spend more money than they'd planned to in a particular item, the COBOL software allowed that to happen. Accounts payable would get a budget notification, they've gone over budget. But we had paper POs, so a PO could be issued without any problem. The invoice would come in and accounts payable could pay it after the city manager approved it. With the new software, that can only happen if, number one, when they get their purchase requisition request into the purchasing department, there is budget available within that category. So you've got a whole variety of accounts within the operating category that you can go over or under. But fixed assets is a little more narrow, as is salaries and benefits. So if something happens, they didn't anticipate replacing a copier, for example. That's something we normally budget for if we know we may need one, and they're fairly expensive. If they need to buy one, they'll need to go to the city manager and say, this unexpected thing happened, we need a copier. Under the old software, he could say, go ahead, send it to me, I'll approve it, and then on they went. With the new software, they can't even get a requisition unless we make a budget amendment. Now, what we would prefer not to do is to bring to you all of those budget amendments under $25,000 and have 3 ordinance readings in order for us to continue to operate. So what we would like to do is this ordinance would accomplish the things the city manager used to approve, he could still approve, and we would actually move budgeted money as needed. So in some cases they may say, we're not going to do this other project, we're not going to need as many office supplies, we're not going to hire someone, or in the case of 2 departments, police may say we need something, fire department may say we don't need something, and we would actually move money from one department to another. In the old software, we didn't have to do that. A department could overspend or underspend, and we were not required to actually go into the software and change something for us to continue to operate. But the new software is tighter controls. We can't just say, okay, if we want to keep those narrow cost centers working the way the city manager's office can then follow. So what we'd like to do is allow the city manager to continue to make those decisions he's always made, allow us within each fund to find those monies that we need for this to be accomplished, and for him to approve that movement of money in the budget. Then we would send to you at the very next council meeting what monies got moved. You would always be informed. We would never have the city manager approve a budget to spend more than you already approved for that fund to spend. So if you approved a particular fund to spend $3 million, he can't move money from one fund to another fund. He can't say, okay, now we're going to spend $3.5 million, that is something council would approve. So we're staying within the fund limit. We would notify you of all changes at the next meeting. We're going to track it through the software system. And this way, the city manager knows what he's approved. You know what he's approved. Our auditors know what he approved. It's not going to be a memo attached to an invoice that got paid that y'all may never have seen because it was under your authorized amount of $25,000. So we think this is a better control, and it's a better way to track what's actually happening with decision making.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Is this just for $25,000 or less? Or would this be if you have a $3 million budget and our budget said all that $3 million is supposed to be spent on a new park, but instead he decides that we don't need a new park and he's going to spend the whole $3 million on something else inside of Parks and Recreation?
Well, unless he did that in multiple expenditures of under 25, the answer would be no, because anything that costs more than 25 has your approval already. So if we want to buy a new police car, we can't buy that unless
so it's
that's
limited.
been authorized.
There's still a $25,000. I mean, when I read through the resolution last night, it doesn't say anything about any limitations, and I was worried, if you're talking a general fund, that's a whole lot of millions of dollars to just say, well, you can do whatever you want underneath the general fund umbrella without having any kind of council approval. So do we...
But we haven't changed his authority to spend over $25,000 without your approval.
Even if it doesn't go over the amount that's already budgeted for the general fund. So again, if we're at this situation where it says we've already budgeted for $10 million, he can't make a change, or the city council, city manager can't make a change of more than $25,000, or he can make a change of bigger than $25,000 even if it stays within the...
To Susan is how it's written.
The way it's written, it talks about not doing any expenditure that's over the approved fund total.
Which is huge, right?
But this is not a substitute for the other limitations that you've previously and recently passed, which require anything over $25,000 to either be in the budget or special, and your approval is when you've approved it in the budget, or it comes to you specially, for approval on the regular or consent agenda items. So it's not as though the city manager can go and say, I'm going to buy a fleet of Rolls Royces or something, that's not allowable by this. It's just saying if the money is needed in police and it's, for extra overtime, because we've had something happen, and we are not needing to buy something, in the golf department. He doesn't have to come back to you and say, I need approval to pay for overtime.
But do those come from the same fund?
They're in the general fund, yes. They come from the same fund. Golf used to be separate. It's not anymore. It's part of the general fund. The letter identifies for you, or at least I think it still does.
So if that was
no, it doesn't anymore.
Second to last
if that was a $100,000 item, there's $100,000 that needs to go to overhead instead of golf, or has to go to police cars instead of golf carts. Let's just say that. How about if it's $100,000 worth of police cars, does he make that change without our approval?
No. Your approval is of, he can shift funds of what you've already approved. In other words, if you approve the golf carts and you approve the police vehicles, and he says, we're not going to buy the golf carts because in addition to the police vehicles, we need to spend police overtime. He doesn't have to come to you for approval before, I should keep it with vehicles. He doesn't have to come to you for approval for that in advance, but you get the report at the following council meeting that says, instead of doing what you already authorized me to do on buying the golf carts, I'm buying police cars instead. okay? But so the total amount isn't changed, and the requirement that he can't spend more than $25,000 without it being publicly advertised or procured in a way that you have approved. It's not outside the other purchasing policy. It's shifting priorities as happens all the time.
Yep, that's good. I didn't see that in here, so I kind of thought, is this different than that, or is it still under that umbrella? That's all.
No, the two work together. But this is allowing the flexibility of things you have approved.
And just to kind of help set the context, I know we've said it year after year. It's something we're certainly proud. Just because the council sets an expenditure budget does not mean the city staff spends all of that. We've traditionally brought our budgets in under budget, our funds in under budget. And so having some flexibility given changing situations is what we were looking to do, where we didn't have to go through 3 readings and have an administrative burden when we really needed to address a particular situation. But our track record has been that we've managed our money well.
Well, and I can add, as of the end of this past year, when we saw that we had an opportunity to maybe take a load off of this year's budget, they came to you for items that were over 25 that were not budgeted before, that said we'd like to go ahead and try to buy those. That's the kind of thing that would continue to happen. But in the softwares, they can't get a requisition unless that's either gotten your approval or the city manager's approval, depending on the situation. So
I think that's one of the stories with the item that we're bringing to you. We believe we've got much better controls with the new software, and we're just trying to clarify and document what has happened in the past and how we would continue in the future. But we do believe our controls are very strong when it comes to this.
And the difference between the city manager doing it and you doing it is an ordinance takes 3 readings. So if something needs to be done quicker, it takes a lot longer and may just be a $10,000 item, but somebody who really needs something will have to wait until we've had 3 meetings for that to then be approved, for us to then go into the software and enter that budget amendment. So we're trying to keep operations flowing while maintaining a stricter hold on those accounts, which the city manager will have, and you'll get the information.
Is there some idea of how often does this occur in the course of a year when we would need to? Do you have any ideas how many times that might occur in the course of a year?
It's hard to answer that, Mr. Shacklet, because some departments have a relatively small fixed asset budget, and if one thing needs to be replaced that was unexpected, that would throw ourselves into that situation. Other departments may have a larger fixed asset budget, and they've saved money, or projects have come in under bid, and they're able to accomplish it within that category. So it is a little bit difficult to answer. The fixed asset tends to be the one that has the most fluctuation. The salaries tends to be the category where we see a good amount of savings, because positions will go vacant and it takes a little while to recruit them. And the operating budget's usually pretty much right on target.
So this is often handled at the department level and never appears for your recommendation. And this is for the 10 funds that we have in the city's budget. Is that
right? It would. The MED and the schools, of course, are part of the city, but they don't have our software. The water and sewer is set up a little bit differently, so they don't tend to come to you with budget amendments. But this would include all the funds that usually we consider the city budget, as far as at budget time that we go over so thoroughly.
Makes sense to me. Sounds like a good idea. I move for approval.
It does. Second.
Councilman Smotherman with the motion and Councilman Washington with the second. So Ms. Wright, will call the roll.
Mr. LaLance?
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman?
Aye.
Mr. Washington?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Young?
Aye.
Mayor McFarland?
Aye. Move to new business and conduct a public hearing and consider for a certificate of compliance Navant Kumar K. Patel and Amita Patel at Murfreesboro City Limit Liquor and Wine, located at 5353 Northwest Broad Street.
Mayor, this would be new owners, so you'll need to have a public hearing. And these are owners for a business that's been in place for a number of years, so this is strictly an ownership change and maybe a name change. I'm not sure if they're doing that, but the location's been there for a long time, and they are here tonight.
Any questions?
Pull the trigger.
We need a public hearing.
Okay, I'm sorry. I apologize. We'll now conduct a public hearing and consider the certificate of compliance for Murfreesboro City Limit Liquor and Wine located at 5353 Northwest Broad Street. Anyone speaking for or against, please come to the podium, state your name and address. If you could keep your comments to 3 minutes and address those to the council, that would be great. We'll now open the public hearing. Seeing none, we'll close for the public hearing and consider this certificate of compliance.
Move for approval.
Second.
Councilman Young, Councilman Smother. Ms. Wright, you'll call them.
Mr. LaLance?
Councilman Lance. I'm sorry. You're seconding every motion tonight, and I'm not even. I'm seeing Ms. Michoto. I'm doing this. I'm messing up.
He's in a rut.
I am. All right. Ms. Wright, you'll call the roll.
Mr. LaLance?
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet?
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman?
Aye.
Mr. Washington?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Young?
Aye.
Mayor McFarland?
Aye. Probably what would be easier, instead of me trying to say this, is everyone say it louder into the microphone for the motion and second, and that way Ms. Michoto can
Hear it better.
hear that better. Sir.
I'm just glad you're thinking about me.
I'm just trying to help out. Yeah. Okay. Pursuant to Resolution 150ZR46 adopted by the City Council on July 30th, 2015, we'll conduct a public hearing to consider rezoning approximately 5.9 acres along North Thompson Lane and Medical Center Parkway from Planned Unit Development, PUD, District to Mixed Use Development, MU District. Judy Beatty, applicant, 2015-417. Notice of said public hearing was published in the August 17, 2015 issue of a local newspaper. Mr. Blomley.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. Our sole public hearing tonight from the Planning Commission is with regards to property located at the northwest corner of Medical Center Parkway and North Thompson Lane. Consists of two parts. All were included in the motion by the Planning Commission. The actual requested area is the 2.9 acres that is in orange, which is currently zoned PUD, Planned Unit District, and the two additional parcels that are colored in blue, which total about 3 additional acres for a total study area of 5.9 acres. The two parcels in blue are also zoned PUD. The one right on the corner of the intersection is developed with a Walgreens drugstore, and the one directly to the west of the Walgreens is a multi-tenant retail center occupied by Firehouse, Subs, and several other tenants. The owners of Marty and Liz Shoe Store came to us and said that they wanted to develop the parcel that is in orange, and I'll show you an aerial photo. It's shaded there in blue on the aerial photo before you, with a multi-tenant retail center occupied or anchored by a Marty and Liz Shoe Store. The PUD zoning, which was adopted in 2008, allows for this area to be developed with a 3-story office building with an option for the 3rd story to be developed with residential condos. That is the use that is presently permitted by the PUD for this property. When the owners of Marty and Liz came to the planning department, we told them that a rezoning would be required in order to develop this property. And as it was zoned as a PUD, it is only approved for this particular use. And as you can see, 7 years, and it still has not been developed with this use. And to my knowledge, we have really had no interest in developing it with the use that it is currently zoned for. So after discussion with the planning staff, it was determined that mixed use would be an appropriate zoning classification. As you can see on the map in front of you, the area directly to the west is already zoned mixed use. And even though the area colored in orange was the only area that was requested by the applicants, staff brought to the Planning Commission the 2 parcels to the south, because all 3 parcels comprise the planned development zone, and the uses that are existing on the 2 southern parcels are permitted by right in the mixed use zone. Staff contacted the owners of the strip center, with the Firehouse Subs. They had no objection to the rezoning to mixed use. We have not heard from Walgreens or the owner of that parcel, but we have not heard any objection from them either. So with that in mind, the Planning Commission did recommend approval of all 3 parcels to be rezoned to mixed use. We have received a site plan application for site plan review and GDO review to the Planning Commission. We anticipate that will be going before the Planning Commission on September 16th for initial design review of the plans for the Marty and Liz development, contingent upon, of course, the rezoning being approved by the City Council. With that being said, I'll be happy to answer any questions with regards to this rezoning. One additional note is that the property is currently in the GDO 1 zoning district, and it will remain in the GDO 1 zoning district. So the standards will still be, the gateway standards will still apply, and it will still face the rigorous review of the Planning Commission at both initial and final design review. And so the City Council can be assured of the quality of the development, both architecture, landscaping, and otherwise. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Mr. Rob Mulchan with SEC is here if you have any questions. He is representing the developers.
What is the zoning of that parcel just north of?
That parcel just to the north is zoned light industrial. There's actually quite a bit of light industrial in the area that's kind of a remnant of the pre-Medical Center Parkway, but it is mostly zoned in a commercial fashion as opposed to industrial, or mostly developed in a commercial fashion.
Okay, any questions before we open the public hearing? All right, seeing none, we'll open the public hearing and consider this rezoning request. Anyone wishing to speak for or against, please come to the podium. Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and we'll consider for passage on first reading ordinance 15-OZ46 to rezone an area located along North Thompson Lane and Medical Center Parkway to mixed-use MU development.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Mr. Smotherman was with the second. Ms. Wright, will call the roll.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Young.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. Ms. Wright, any beer permits?
None tonight.
Okay. We have no board and commission appointments. But no payment of statements that I see. Any other business for the staff of the City Council? I would make one comment that this council is not nearly, does not look nearly as good tonight because Ms. Scales Harris is not here. So she is still recovering and under the weather. So we have her in our thoughts and prayers. And I know she's watching right now because she sent me a text saying that she missed us. So we miss you too and look forward for a speedy recovery. So,
I got a text from her as well, and I think she said she missed the box lunch before the meeting more than she did the meeting. but it does sound like she's improving, and we're praying for her.
all right. Everyone have a great Labor Day weekend. We stand adjourned.
No meeting next week.